Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 underrated fragrances for mature men. And fashion and style gets really confusing the older you get. Something as simple as not shaving for a couple of days or maybe wearing some worn out jeans. When you're in your 20s and 30s, that's nothing. That's a casual look, and it looks really good on some men. But once you get into your late 40s, that kind of look has some potential to maybe look homeless. That really scared me. I started to pay much more attention to the way I dressed as soon as I hit 50. I threw out my baseball hats. I was very selective about when I wore my hockey jerseys. I became much more careful. My wardrobe got a lot better, and that's when I started to collect fragrances. And fragrances can be tricky too. There's a balance to be made there. You don't want to have something that is like all old school, because then you're kind of stuck in the past. But at the same time, you don't want to have the latest and greatest sweet gourmand fragrance that all the kids are wearing. That's going to look really try hard. That'll actually age you more than anything. The difficulty is finding a balance between modernity and maturity, and that's what this video is about today. Fragrance number 1, this is Versace Oud Noir. And oud is a relatively modern note in the Western world. It started in 2002, but it really didn't start to take off until the early 2010s. That's when this was released. This is from 2011. It's an exotic note. It can be a little bit challenging, but if you're thinking of wearing oud, and I think you should, it's a nice masculine note. This is perfect for mature men. It is not as challenging as some of the sweeter ouds that can come off a little bit more youthful, a little bit more seductive. This one is a very classy oud, much in the same vein as Tom Ford's Oud Wood. What they did was they made it accessible. The oud is a deep, dark, rich note. It can be too dark for some people, and this fragrance, they freshened it up by adding 5 different fresh notes right across the freshness spectrum. One of them was adding neroli and orange, which is like a citrus freshness. You've got olibanum, which is a resinous freshness, and then black pepper and saffron, which is spicy freshness. Those 5 fresh notes really lighten it up and make it much more accessible, but still classy. And then you've got cardamom, which is a more traditional, warm, masculine note. I mean, this fragrance is fantastic. Great performance as well. Fragrance number 2 is Creed's original Santal. They took the formula or the DNA for that from the House of Montblanc. This is Montblanc Individuel, and this was hyped heavily by Jeremy Fragrance. But you got to remember, Jeremy Fragrance is in his 20s. He's not marketing fragrances to older men in their late 40s, early 50s, and up. But Creed did. Creed went all in on this formula, but instead of using vanilla like this is like a lot of vanilla, sandalwood, and a little hint of raspberry dryer sheets. This is a different formulation entirely. They turned this into a woody aromatic with a hint of sweetness. They used tonka instead of vanilla, and they upped the powderiness, the classiness of the sandalwood, making this an absolutely fantastic fragrance, but it's more mature. So the woods obviously is sandalwood and cedar, but heavily on the sandalwood. And then they added 5 aromatic herbal notes, which are more traditionally masculine, which are more mature notes: lavender and oak moss, rosemary and geranium, and juniper. Beautifully balanced fragrance. They released an updated version of this. This particular formula is 20 years old. The new version is slightly sweeter, slightly spicier, but still a lot less sweet than something like Montblanc Individuel, and would work for a mature man. Fragrance number 3 is Versace Eros Flame. Not the original Eros. I like the Eros DNA. It's sweet. It's seductive. It's very, very popular. But the original Versace Eros for a mature man is just too sweet. It is not as well balanced as Eros Flame. And I think the fragrance community realized that, and this is extremely popular in the community, much more so than the general public. The beautiful thing about this is the sweetness is there, but it's balanced better with a lot of citrus notes. There's orange, lemon, and Chinato. A lot of citrus. There's a little bit of black pepper too, giving it a hint of spiciness. This is a much better option for a mature man. You can still wear Eros. You can still be seductive. This is a better choice. Fragrance number 4, this is L'instant de Guerlain, Eau de Toilette. And the DNA for this fragrance initiated in 2004. However, yes, 20 years ago, so, a little bit of maturity, but it was ahead of its time with the sweetness. So it was a gourmand, but an early gourmand, not like the modern gourmands with gobs and gobs of vanilla, which is what the younger people are wearing today. This is balanced out really nicely. So what you're going to get again is a couple of citrus notes, lemon and bergamot, balancing out the sweetness in this. And the sweetness of this largely comes from a chocolatey vibe. There's no actual chocolate. Combination of patchouli and cacao gives it a chocolatey feel. There's also a very prominent warm, spicy accord. You get hibiscus, which is a spicy floral, anise, and black pepper. So you got warm, spicy, and citrus to sort of balance out the sweetness of the fragrance, the chocolatey vibe. It's a really pleasant gourmand, and I do think the Eau de Toilette would be better for a mature guy. I find that the Eau de Parfum is definitely sweeter, a little bit stronger. I think the Eau de Toilette would be perfect. Fragrance number 5, this is Hanae Mori's Hymn. And this is a fragrance that I really adore, but I haven't talked about it too much because it's been discontinued for a while, and it's been impossible to get in North America. However, on the Black Friday sales, 100 milliliters of this was available for $70 US. This is normally cheaper than that, but I still think $70 is worth it. Now, this is a clone of Gucci Pour Homme 2, but Gucci Pour Homme 2 is a really genuinely considered an all-time classic. It's $330 on eBay is the going price. You know, for a designer fragrance, that's crazy. The fact that you can get this for $70 and the fact that this is a very, very faithful and accurate clone, I really do think it's worth it. Now, the fragrance here is not as long-lasting as Gucci Pour Homme 2. It's pretty much maybe 4.5 hours, but it's the depth and the richness of this that really make it. And depth and richness for a fragrance like Gucci Pour Homme 2 in this, really important. So it's a warm, spicy, ozonic fragrance. And you get the ozonic from a lot of violet leaf. The warm, spicy component comes from black pepper and cinnamon. And then there's a sweet component with amber and tonka. So it's a sweet, warm, spicy, lightened up with violet leaf. It's going to smell very different than anything you're used to, but it does balance the sweetness of the fragrance with an ozonic quality, making the sweetness a little bit lighter, balancing, again, maturity and modernity perfectly. Fragrance number 6, this is Une Histoire d'Âme Irresistible from the house of Mauboussin. This was my fragrance of the year for 2023. It wasn't released in 2023, but of all the fragrances that I purchased that year, this one is absolutely spectacular. Again, I can't talk about it much because most people don't know about it. It's got that crazy long name. Most people are not interested in it, but it is absolutely perfect for an older person. The only thing that will put you off about this is the price tag. It's super low. You will look at the price tag of this. It's 90 milliliters. You can get it for $30 to $35. You know, you're older, you probably have a little bit more money, you're more established. Why would you want to spend money on a really cheap fragrance? You should, because it's absolutely brilliant. It is a perfect fragrance for mature men. It's a fig leaf fragrance that's also woody. It has a green component. Fig normally comes across as a little bit green. So you've got the fig leaf, you've got bergamot, and then you've got 2 woody notes, cedar and sandalwood, and you get a powdery element, a very classy element. The only drawback to this, the only true drawback, is the fact that when I got this bottle, I sprayed it on. It felt very, very thin, and it didn't perform all that well. This is such an inexpensive fragrance. It's one of those ones you have to spray it a couple of times and leave it for about 2 or 3 weeks. It'll get a lot better, a lot deeper, a lot richer once it macerates. Then you'll get 5 to 6 hours. It is such a classy fragrance. Fragrance number 7, Parfum de Marly's Habdan. Now, Parfum de Marly Layton is an iconic fragrance in the fragrance community. It's one of the best fragrances out there. It's an expensive niche fragrance. This is its older brother fragrance. It is darker, it is more masculine, and more mature than Layton. So if you like Layton and don't love it because maybe it's a little bit too sweet and that lacks maturity, you know, the heavy vanilla, or the fact that there's 3 florals in Layton, it's got a little bit of a feminine vibe, consider going to Habdan. I do think this is an underrated fragrance for older men. So it is darker because of the myrrh, which is a dark resin, and then you combine that with caramel, which is a darker form of sweetness than vanilla. So it's sweet, but it is more masculine. There's no florals in this either. It's got some apple. Really nice for mature men. Fragrance number 8, this is Azzaro Visit. This is a fairly inexpensive $40 fragrance that might seem a surprise to be on this list for mature men. However, this is the closest thing on the market to sort of an iconic fragrance in the fragrance community called Gucci Rush. It came out in the turn of the century, and it's going for $250 right now online on eBay. That's the best price that I could find because people really like it. It is a spicy, woody scent, and so is this. However, this one is slightly more sweet than a Gucci Rush, but it is very similar. The performance in this is pretty average, but it's just that scent. It's very different and very appealing, and I think would really work for mature men. So 2 woods in this, cedar and gaiac wood. So gaiac wood's a little bit smoky. Then you have incense that makes it a little bit smokier. That is another quality that's slightly different than Gucci Rush, is the smokiness, but it's not a huge factor. The spices, though, come from pink pepper and nutmeg. Nicely balanced fragrance. Don't expect crazy performance because it is, after all, a $40 fragrance, but the scent profile is perfect for mature men. Yeah, I do think that, you know, the older I get, the more careful I have to be about what I put on. That's why I rail often against the excessive use of vanilla, although I do like sweet fragrances. I really enjoy them. And that's why I came up with a video, just to keep some sweetness in there, but not go too far and not sort of date yourself a little bit. Anyway, thanks for watching.